if there's one book I've seen online that gets a bunch of shit and a bunch of people like make fun of it, I would definitely say one of the ones that's like the most up there for the amount of flack that it gets is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Now, I don't think this is one of those things where the actual problem itself is the book. I think it's actually not a bad book, but I think what's ruined it and its kind of reputation is the people that read it. It's one of those things where like the community of something kind of ruined the thing, right? I don't know if I could bring up a good example right now, but I know there's plenty of things where it's like the community of it kind of damages the reputation. And I think that's something that's happened with the 48 Laws of Power. I think a lot of people read the book and they don't really take it for what it is. They'll take bits and pieces of it that, you know, might kind of sound cool, right? Like manipulation, like people that think that book is specifically about manipulation, either one, didn't read the whole book. And I think that's another issue, right? People that read it, they don't read the whole book. Or they don't even read the book. They see someone like talk about the second law in the book on TikTok, and then that's their only really exposure to the book, right? If you actually read the book and you take it in its context, right? You actually like take it for what it is. It's not about manipulation, and sure, that is in there, right? But that's not what the whole thing is about. And I think what also happens is a lot of like chuds will read it, right? like lots of people that are very isolated or lonely, or they're kind of maybe upset with their lives and they're looking for some kind of quick solution, right? So they hear about the 48 Laws of Power, and they hear the word power and think that, you know, if you read this book, you can become more powerful, right? And so I think some people read it as a quick solution. It's almost like they think that reading that book is going to solve all the issues in their life, right? Because they hear the word power. But that's just not the case. All that's going to happen is you're going to learn a bit about power dynamics. It's not going to solve your life. There's issues in life that a book about power will not address. So I think it's very stupid to read something like that thinking it's going to solve your life, right? And then again, people that read it don't actually read it for what it is. They kind of romanticize it in a way. And, you know, some people, they'll read it and end up like fucking trying to manipulate their friends or their parents, which is stupid, right? And if you ever heard Robert Greene himself talk about the book, he talks about certain laws, and like one of the laws, I don't know which law, one of them is crush your enemy totally. And one of the things he said is like, I would hope that I'm never in a position where I would have to crush an enemy totally, right? You know, that's in the book because perhaps throughout history, it's been true to the game of so-called power, right? You know, the idea that like if you hurt someone but you don't destroy them, then they'll be vengeful and come back to get you, right? And it's not incorrect, right? But there's not a lot of examples in day-to-day life where you're going to have to crush your enemy totally, right? And there's a lot of other laws in that book that get romanticized. You know, again, some of them are about manipulation, right? Conceal your intentions is a law, right? There's one that's like, be careful with friends and use your enemies, right? Destroy your enemy totally. Make others do the work for you and take the credit. And it's like, look, that's not really the point of the book. And again, I think this is another thing Robert Greene himself has said. There's a big aspect in the book that's like, have social skills, right? Like that's one of the biggest themes in the book that seems to just go over some people's heads. Literally, have social skills, like be able to work with people, be someone that is good socially, be able to talk to people, have people skills. And that's what I would consider like the good advice in the book, right? And obviously like it's dramatized in the book, right? Like recreate yourself or whatever, right? But underneath all that, the book is literally telling you like, be better socially, go outside, right? Get some social skills. And so I think that's a big part of it that goes over people's heads. And then I think the big problem again is that like it's a bunch of chuds read this book, or a bunch of people don't actually even read the book, right? They hear about it, or they read like the first little bit. And so they don't actually understand the book. And then they talk about the book in a way that's dramatized and romanticized and not even correct. And it just gives it a shit reputation. So I do definitely think that it's one of those things that was kind of ruined by the community of it rather than, like, I don't think the book itself is actually a bad book. I think Robert Greene nailed the game of power pretty good, right? So-called power. But I do think there's definitely I think the book has a reputation, and it's not a good one. And once again, I don't think that comes from the actual context of the book itself. I think it comes from the people that read it. Right? So if you're going to read this book, nuance is another thing too, and context, right? Literally the final law in the book was assume formlessness, right? And it's basically the point that everything is circumstantial, right? You need context. There's actually laws in the book that contradict each other because you need context. You need a level of nuance, right? There's certain circumstances where one law would apply and the opposite of that exact law would apply in another set of circumstances. Or there's one set where this law would apply or that one. And so it's not just like a manual, do this, achieve power. No, a big theme also is that you need context. So yeah, once again, I don't have a whole lot to say about the book other than what I've already said. I don't think it's a bad book, but if you're going to read it, definitely actually read it, right? And understand what it's actually getting at, right? Have context, have nuance.